Ready?
Okay,
I always love doing that. I don't know why.
that was me. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, perfect. Okay.
Good evening, everyone. Welcome to the March 12, 2026 meeting of the Milburn Township Charter Study Commission, which is called to order. In accordance with Section 5 of the Open Public Meetings Act, Chapter 231, Public Laws 1975, be advised that the notice of this meeting was made by posting on a bulletin board in the town hall and forwarding to the officially designated newspaper, that this meeting would take place at the Bauer Center at 8 o'clock on Thursday, March 12th, 2026. Meeting details in the draft agenda have been posted. I would kindly ask everyone to please stand for the pledge of allegiance. Corey, will you please lead us?
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the
For the United States of America.
to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. All right, I will now call a roll call vote to note those who was present. Dr. Khan?
Mr. Miller?
Here.
Dr. Cummings here. Ms. Parker Lentz?
Here.
Mr. Penna? Mr. Drucker?
Here.
Right. Note that we also have Council Suzanne Savasco of King Mansion Collins in attendance, and we have Nancy Basie Blackwood and Ben Forrest attending via Zoom.
Thank you. The record will show that we have a quorum for this meeting. May I have a motion to approve the agenda?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Thank you. May I have a motion to approve the March 4th, 2026 meeting minutes?
So, long motion.
Motion, okay. Is there a second? Good. All in favor?
Aye.
Great. Are there any commissioners with reports since our last meeting?
I mean, we can do a quick report.
Yeah, I'll do a quick report.
Yeah, so quick report. We had a fantastic interview today with business administrator at Mountain Lakes, and Alex was present for it because we wanted to make sure that Alex's concerns about, 7-person versus 5-person versus any other size and any other, aspects of the town government that they have would be addressed. So it was a fascinating set of perspectives that flip-flopped the way I started to even think about coalescing these numbers and, you know, synthesizing everybody else's information. It was just really, he made me think about it again. And just, I thought I was like, okay, I think I got this. Boom. It was just such a good meeting that I really like when somebody challenges my perspective again. And I think the way that Alex was able to ask his questions made me feel like I don't want to upend things by making decisions as a group, or at the moment we haven't and we can't, because we haven't talked about it. But for myself, I always think, what don't we know? And how to future-proof it, because we don't want to create problems down the road that future TCs that may change drastically can't anticipate. So just trying to be really mindful of, you know, of things like that. And tomorrow we're having another VA interview with Alex McDonald as well, to make sure that he's part of the process and asks his questions, and we're confident in, you know, his feeling okay. So I thought that was really, you know, very informative, and I know you're gonna have notes on it, so.
Dr. Condu, I just have a little,
Yeah,
synopsis of it also.
No, I felt very much the same way. I think it's interesting to see sort of the way other municipalities do things.
Yeah.
And from just the operational perspective.
And he gave some good ideas too.
Yes.
I think while we can't change those things, but we can recommend some things that he does. And Alex was really, I thought he was really appreciated the slight differences, and will put into play what his suggestions were to make things feel civil for the future, and see the TC members as fellow neighbors and not just people who just got elected with you and are pro or against you. So I think there were some great ideas, and I felt really good about it.
Good, I look forward, we will look forward to.
To the report, yeah.
To the report.
And a separate report, Chris and I met with Joe Diarco, a 57, he's a township manager. He's formerly of Verona for an interim, that was his last stint. But he had been a manager in, I think, 7 other municipalities, many of which were borough councils.
That's who came
But-
recommended from.
Yes, from
the
Mayor
Verona
Tim
area.
Laura
Yes.
of
Great.
Verona. He had a 57-year career, and there was just a lot of stuff that we learned from him, so.
This person also was extremely informative.
Well, it's nice when people have perspectives from different townships, and I think the nice thing about today's VA is that he's been in multiple places. He comes from, you know, different sizes of, you know, the council and different forms of government, and it was interesting, his perspective on a directly elected versus non-directly elected, that really kind of challenged the way I was thinking about things, and he produced ideas that could be problematic with a directly elected that I really hadn't previously thought. So it was really like, you know, I just love the fact that we get these challenges, even though we talk to so many people. So I think was good.
Good,
And tomorrow will be great too, I'm sure.
thank you. Are there any other reports? Seeing none, let's move on. Public comment. To speak during the public comment period, please follow these instructions. Ensure your Zoom display name shows your first and last name. Click the raise hand button. You will be called upon in order and promoted to the panelists. Please turn on your video when called to speak. Clearly state your full name and whether you are a Millburn resident or a business owner to facilitate an orderly meeting and permit all to be heard. Please limit your comments to 3 minutes. A reminder that the public comment period is an opportunity for residents to share their views with the commission. Commissioners will not respond to questions or engage in dialogue during the speaking time. We'll carefully consider all comments at the end of the public comment period. Questions and discussion may be addressed at the chair's discretion. Anyone have a comment just yet? Jay?
Jay Morielli, representing Jay Morielli tonight. We couldn't get our little commission together due to some personal challenges that a couple of our members are having. First, I'd like to commend the commission on last week's interview with Mayor Tamburo. I thought it was fantastic. Good discussion, good topics, good questions, and also commend the commission on the outreach efforts. I think Joanna, you're doing a fantastic job with all of your outreach, so kudos on that.
Just Joanna?
I haven't gotten any emails from you, Chris. I hate to say it. also like to say hi to Nancy and Ben. Ben, we spoke on the phone. Nancy, you spoke at the event we had, so thank you both. And I've got a question I'm hoping the council can answer, and it's in light of the comments made by Mayor Tamburo regarding the bylaws of the political parties in Verona that have prohibited them from endorsing candidates. My understanding, in the case of nonpartisan elections, that there is no requirement that parties are prohibited from endorsing candidates. They can continue to operate the way they do today. They can select candidates, they can hold fundraising events, they can solicit campaign contributions from external sources. They can provide campaign assistance in the form of canvassing, gathering signatures, and doing everything they do today, with the exception of obviously being involved in a primary, as there would be no primary in a nonpartisan election. That's my understanding. And if that is correct, would the commission consider as part of its report any recommendations on what political parties, what the commission thinks they should do or not do in the case of nonpartisan elections, realizing that they are not bound to any recommendations from the commission, obviously. But I thought the fact that Verona, their parties decided not to endorse candidates, I thought that was a fantastic thing. And actually it makes nonpartisan elections a lot more meaningful, in my humble opinion, in that case. And I'd like to make a comment regarding the pothole references that seem to come up from meeting to meeting. And the commission, what they're considering is not nonpartisan government versus partisan government. Government is the government, and if it's partisan, it's dependent on the people that are in office, whether they act in a partisan manner or not.
Jay, I'm gonna stop you there, and when we go to the next section, I'm gonna let you speak again, because, you know, we wanna get the interviews going.
Okay.
Okay, thank you.
Jeff Feld,
Jeff, yeah.
poet section. I really want to echo him. I really want to compliment you for the last two meetings. We've been excellent with the interview and the presentation by Michael Collins, and I think tonight it's just going to continue this pattern. However, at the last meeting, the Verona mayor raised a very interesting point about their BA being subject to a 3-year employment contract. I do not believe Alex, after his first retention, has ever been subject to another publicly noticed retention contract. And that's something that you might want to investigate, or be one of your recommendations, that whoever the BA is, that he's like the superintendent subject to an employment contract. Another grounds for why you might want to consider the Faulkner Act to consolidate functions. I've learned today of a public law 2026, chapter 185, that was signed into law at the end of December by Murphy. And that one specifically says duties, if you're a Faulkner Act, of the business administrator, when you're in the manager council form of government, where they put deadlines for when the VA has to submit to the council the proposed budget. And it also has dates where the council has to introduce the budget, and then to adopt the budget. They amended certain dates, but that's something that you might want to say, because as we always discuss, we didn't go to the Faulkner Act, but we created this entity, this position called BA. But the question is, where is really his duties coming from? Is it from ordinance rather than state law? And that might be one of the reasons to go to the Faulkner Act, because it specifically says what his additional duties are based on the amended law.
Dr. Khan wrote down both you guys, requests. Okay,
I think Mr. Becker.
Oh, there's some comments.
oh,
Mike Becker, and my 50th year in town. I'm glad to say, proud to say. I thought the mayor of Verona was excellent. I thought he really made a lot of sense, and I thought that was great. Because I'm 105 years old, my questions probably been answered before. I probably asked them before. When you quote these names of the people that you're talking to,
Yes,
I thought at one time you said it put pressure to use their names. Will you do your final decision and your final report
mhm,
to the state, to the town?
mhm.
Are you using the names or is it just the town people that you can't use the names? I wasn't clear on that.
All right, let me answer that real fast. When either Commissioner Joanna Parker Lenz and myself interview somebody, or when myself and Dr. Khan interview somebody, we always tell them that, you know, we're not gonna quote them. And then halfway during the conversation, they say, please quote.
Oh, they do.
It's the municipal workers that
Yeah.
are not,
Do they
we're
ever
not
say,
using the names.
do they ever say, I'd rather not be quoted, any of these people?
I'm sorry?
Do any of these people ever say, I'd rather you not use my name?
Yes,
Okay, so you have to.
and we don't.
You have to abide by it. Okay,
Yeah.
Now it's clear.
But municipal employees is really who we were saying, we're not using municipal employees' names
At all.
at all. And we've obviously interviewed the department heads, so it's obvious who we interviewed. But TC people, yes, those names are gonna be in the report, everybody who was interviewed, who was an elected member, or, you know, obviously the folks who we went out to visit will be in the report, so
Okay,
just
thank
municipal
you.
employees,
Great, Dr. Khan, is there anyone on Zoom?
answer everybody else after.
If anyone on Zoom is wishing to speak, you can raise your hand now. No one wishes to be heard.
Okay, great. I now close the first public comment period. Are there any comments from the commission regarding any comments made by the public? I think, let's continue on. Yeah, let's
Yeah, we'll
let's
answer
do
everyone's
the,
questions after.
yeah,
And you
let's
may have
do,
more questions.
let's do the interviews. And I'm not like any other commissioner in town. I like to have dialogue, so we will have a chat after. Anyway, interviews. Tonight, we have the distinct pleasure of interviewing current Red Bank Council members Nancy Facey Blackwood and Ben Forrester, who both also served on the 2022 Red Bank Charter Study Commission. Ms. Facey Blackwood is a passionate community leader who served as the chair of the Red Bank Charter Study Commission. Ms. Facey Blackwood received a distinguished Civic Leadership Award from the New Jersey chapter of the American Planning Association. Her accomplishments include leading Red Bank's Green Team and Environmental Commission to earn Sustainable Jersey Silver Level Certificate, championing complete and green streets initiatives, and implementing the Red Bank Pedestrian Safety Demonstration Project, and much more. A former computer program, telecommunications system engineer, and consultant. Ms. Facey Blackwood brings a logical approach to analysis and has decades of experience working collaboratively to solve problems. Mr. Forrester is a longtime New Jersey and Red Bank community activist. Prior to joining the Red Bank Borough Council in 2023, he served a 19-year tenure of the Red Bank Board of Education with 3 terms as president. He serves on the Fort Monmouth Environmental Advisory Commission since the closure of the base, and currently serves as council liaison to the Parks and Recreation Commission and to the Red Bank Public Schools. He was reelected to Borough Council in 2025, 29-year Red Bank resident and self-employed computer support consultant. Mr. Forrest brings to public service a deep commitment to long-term thinking over short-term politics, and a belief that good local government is above all about getting things done. We're extremely grateful that they are able to join us today. Without further ado, let's start the questions. I will start the questions. Thank you folks again for being here. Red Bank completed its own charter study in 2022 and converted to a council manager form of government. Before we get into specifics, for the benefit of our residents watching, can each of you briefly describe what Red Bank's government looks like today? Nancy, will you start, please?
Yeah, thank you so much for having me. And Ben, I'll leave lots of stuff for you to add as well. Uh, I would say our government is running effectively and efficiently, which was one of the things, one of our goals in the Charter Study Commission to create an effective and efficient government. Excuse the noise back there. And I can also say we ended up accomplishing or alleviating a lot of the challenges that our government had. So now we have a clear path to get things done in a timely manner, which was very important. Ben?
Ben, would you like to?
He's on mute.
Oh, Ben has to get off the mute.
She stopped quicker than I thought.
There you
So
go.
these she was our chair, by the way, of the Charter Commission, which I think you did mention in the laundry list of her accomplishments.
Yes.
So she really led us, in that whole endeavor. And we had our form of government for 106 years, so it was quite a long time. Anyway, how's it working now? Would you mind, Chairman, repeating that question?
Sure. Before we get into specifics, for the benefit of our residents watching, can each of you briefly describe what Red Bank's government looks like today?
Okay. So we have, as you mentioned, the manager form of government. So today we got a report, like at our council meeting just tonight. We were to see I'm all dressed up. We were just at our council meeting.
There you go.
I love that we have increased accountability. Like one of the pet peeves, if you like, that I had with our former form of government was that we didn't do evaluations of our chief administrators. We do that now. We have cleaner and direct, structure for supervision and lines of communication. Red Bank, we were kind of a mess before, in my opinion. One of the things it did mention, I think, in my bio was that I was a citizen activist. I'm not that anymore. So now that I'm elected official, but I was probably going to our council meetings for almost as long as I lived here, which is 30 years. So I was like the gentleman sitting in those seats, I guess, over there who go and attend. I'm identifying with you guys over there. I was listening earlier. We have our own little history of the good, the bad, and the ugly. And it's not to say that our previous governing bodies didn't do great things also. I think we're doing well. I think we're doing better than we have. And I'm pleased and honored to be part of it. We really had a long list of stuff that was neglected in our town, from parks to buildings to little things. And, I just see the checklist, a lot of stuff getting done. And so I guess the bottom line is that.
Great. Thank you. Nancy, can you unmute? There.
Yes.
And for context, what was the biggest problem the old structure had that the charter change was designed to solve?
One of the biggest challenges that we found that our former government had was interference in day-to-day operations by council members, talking to department heads, interfering with the work that the administrator at the time would do if there was something that they were not in favor of. And that created a lot of conflict with our department heads and employees because they really didn't know who they reported to. Right. So one thing that the council manager former government did for us is it created a separation and chain of command. So council and the mayor, we focus on policy and legislation. The day-to-day is handled by our town manager, who is responsible for his department heads and so on and so forth. All the way down, as Ben mentioned, the appraisal of the town manager, that's something that the borough didn't have before. Actually, they didn't have appraisals of the departments as well. So that has been structured. There's a clear chain of command. And one thing that I have observed in that difference is that the employees they appear to be happier. And, they really like working under this form of government. One other thing that constrained us quite a bit in our old form of government was that it was a partisan form of government, and every year there would be council people up for election. So as a result, people are looking to say, what can I do so I can get reelected, right? As opposed to spending the time working on the projects that had to get done. And, sometimes some of the policy and legislation is uncomfortable. So maybe they wouldn't want to do it because it might not be something that's popular with many people, but it is necessary. So with our changeover from partisan to nonpartisan form of government and elections every 2 years, we can focus on getting things done. And we're taking on some very big projects, and we have an excellent manager who helps, basically runs the day to day. One of my philosophies are our departments and our municipal employees are trained, they have certification, they have 10,000 hours worth of service. So that's who you should really lean on for managing day to day. And me as a council member, I don't have that expertise. So you should let them do their job as long as we're focusing on what the overall picture should look like.
Thank you. Ben, do you have anything to add to Nancy's?
Well, I guess, I'm not quite sure which question you're on here. I did read through your questions there, and I guess I would add.
Let me say the question again.
Okay.
And for context, what was the biggest problem the old structure had that the charter change was designed to solve?
Okay. Well, I really love that anyone can really run. I mean, sure, technically under the old system, you could run. You could get a petition and run off the line, but I don't know. It was I don't think it ever happened when I was there. I could be wrong. But it would usually be Democrats in our town, but sometimes Republicans would win and take a majority, and it would kind of go back and forth. One thing that Nancy touched on that I couldn't agree with her more on is this business of having elections every year. I don't know what you do in Millburn, but we had elections every year, and it's exhausting, and it really kind of was toxic for the town. It was just too much drama, hair pulling, and I don't have a lot of hair, so I didn't want to do any hair pulling, and it was getting out of hand. I'm in obviously am in one of the party structures. I happen to be a Democratic committee member, so I was in that. But we had fighting among ourselves. We had a whole big messy fight among the committee members, and it was awful. And so one of the things that I really am glad we did was we reduced elections to every 2 years. And sometimes I wonder, should we have gone with a 4-year model where the elections every 4 years? But we went with a 2-year kind of thing because we had elections every year. So it seemed reasonable that instead of going into all 4 years, we sort of compromised on having an election every 2 years. So 3 of us are elected. Nancy's in the next cycle with the mayor and another council member. And I was just in the last cycle. I had like a special short term because, we just reset our form of government. So the reset meant that I had basically a 2.5-year term, which is a little weird, but it's fine. And we ran unopposed. But anybody can run, which is powerful, I think, and be viable. Of course, there's unfairness in elections and who has money and who doesn't. But I think it's a lot better than it was. I don't know if that answers your question, Mr. Chairman.
Yeah, thank you, Ben. Nancy.
Yes.
Would you say that the change to a council manager form of government successfully resolved the issues that you had been experienced under the previous form of government?
So far, I would say yes. Reason being, as Ben alluded to, anybody can run. And at the time, when we were doing the Charter Study Commission, you had the whole party line system. And that meant like if you were not one of the anointed candidates through the actual party, you usually ended up in ballot Siberia. So, that got eliminated. And everyone gets a fair draw on the ballot. And again, it's a matter about how you campaign. One thing I also want to mention, instead of going to every 4 years, one of the options we had was that, but it meant everybody would have to run at the same time. And the drawback we thought for us would be you could get a whole new council. And so therefore, you have to bring a whole new council up to speed. With every 2 years, you can balance that out, between an experienced council member and a new council member. So
Great.
yes, I think it did solve the problem that we had to have. Red Bank was so dysfunctional at the time that we couldn't find people to take over the role as administrator or a CFO or things like that. So once, the air cleared, for one or better word, because it was so contentious, we were able to recruit a lot of excellent people to our municipal government.
Thank you, Nancy. Ben, I'll read the question again. Would you say that the change to a council manager form of government successfully resolved the issues that you had been experiencing under the previous form of government?
I'm going to say yes. But, one of the things that, you still have to elect
Good.
reasonable people that are going to be reasonable. And we have that. We don't always agree on everything, but, it's a new form of government, a better form of government. I think it totally helps. We have clear lines of communication. We saw that problem that Nancy mentioned earlier, which was really a chronic problem where there was a lot of meddling by 7 council members and the mayor and against each other. There was like these weird games of power and weird stuff going on for quite a long time. And we didn't have that on the Board of Education. You may have heard earlier, I served on the Board of Education for 19 years. And, it was very obvious that was happening. And so, it took a toll on the employees and the town. It really did. And so we have, now that the manager really responds to the mayor and the deputy mayor. They do, like when we do the evaluation, we all comment on it. We do a written thing. And then, the talk, if you like, is done by the mayor and the deputy mayor with the manager, directly. And then the manager, of course, handles all the day to day. So, the manager is tolerant of me calling the head of the public works department and saying, constituent needs this, but I have to be careful. And, in some towns, sometimes council members are told not to do that. And I'm mindful of, being very careful with, my position and understanding that I really am supposed to go through the manager for most things. And so that's what I would add to what Nancy said. I think she covered it well. So the answer is, I would say yes,
Right.
but it's not a miracle.
Little question. When you were on the BOE in Red Bank, was that nonpartisan elections?
Yeah, it was nonpartisan.
Okay.
And
Thank
we did well, I think.
Good. All right. Nancy, you're up again.
Okay.
All right. Can you describe the working relationship between the council and the manager?
Yes. The council basically goes directly to the manager. If they, when they encounter day-to-day issues or when we have ideas of things that we would like to consider for legislation, like it's sort of like testing the water. Is this something that would make sense? I would say that we have a very good working relationship with our particular manager, and it works very well. Sometimes we do talk directly to department heads, but one thing like I do is I CC the manager, I make him aware. So he always knows, like what we're doing if we're talking to department heads. And I think that is critical. So we make sure that there's clear communication and of what we're doing and like on our projects and stuff. So it's a good thing. Yeah. And
Great.
yeah. Ben, what else can you say about our manager?
Thank you. Ben, can you describe the working relationship between the council and the manager?
I think Nancy covered it well. They can cut, the manager has the power to cut us off. Like if we are inappropriate in some way, and I don't mean it like in a toxic kind of way, but the manager in our forum can kind of say, Ben, I can't have you, haggling with this team all the time. You got to just do everything through me.
Yeah.
And so, and I think that that's good because you really don't want to have, the 7 council members telling people how to do their jobs.
Great, thank you. I'm going to turn the questions over to Dr. Khan now. Dr.
Okay.
Khan?
Nancy and Ben, thank you so much for joining us. I know it was very short notice, and I also know that you had a council meeting earlier this evening, so.
Can I pause on that just for a second? Because I thought I heard that earlier.
Mhm.
Are you to tell me that you had a council meeting and was able to show up at 8 o'clock here?
Yeah.
Yes,
Let's just adopt
actually,
whatever
that's-
they have. It's literally, it's working. Like,
That's one of the
just
things that
incredible.
has changed in our former government because our council meetings used to go on for hours on end and it ran like a telenovela, I kid you not, previously. And now we were done
We don't
what?
know what that's like, really. I mean.
Right. We were done at, what time were we done? Like 7:20 tonight? Yeah,
What time did it start? It's like
6:30.
3 o'clock in the afternoon?
6:30.
6:30, and we finished at 7:20, went through the whole agenda.
Now,
Let's take their report with. Sorry, go ahead.
Dr. Khan?
So
I'm sorry. Yes?
My questions are mainly going to focus on the directly elected mayor. So just for the benefit of those watching at home, Red Bank has a 7-person council manager with a directly elected mayor, nonpartisan elections, staggered elections every 2 years. Am I missing anything else?
Runoffs. We have runoffs.
Okay, you do have runoffs. We can get to those a little later.
Yeah.
In Milburn, our mayor is currently selected internally by the township committee from among its 5 members, and that happens every year. Can you describe election dynamics as it pertains to the mayor and the council? And specifically, can you talk to whether mayoral candidates formed slates with council candidates?
Sure. With our former government, our mayor gets a vote on regular council issues compared to our previous form of government, where the mayor was only able to break a tie. Our mayoral candidates form council candidates with slates. That's what we did in our reset election when our mayor was running. So we had formed one slate and there was another slate that was formed, mayoral candidate with council members, and then there was one independent. So yes, that worked very well for all of us. So it was easy in the sense that we could say, well, yes, on your ballot, you can choose whoever you want and pick and choose. But, if you want to choose a whole slate, we're all here and we're all pretty much aligned in our views for the town, views for the future of our town. Yes.
Ben, did you have anything to add to that?
Well, obviously people can also pick and choose between the slates. I mean, a lot of voters, say, well, I don't like Ben, but I'll vote for, Nancy and this person on the other ticket, and maybe I'll vote for the independent. And, I mean, one of the reasons, of course, there's slates, by the way, is not, it's also cost. I mean, running for office is shocking. I mean, I'm in a little town, 13,000, maybe 4,000 registered voters. One mailing is like $8,000 or $9,000. So, the thought of, I mean, I would personally try to avoid running personally because Amy and I don't have the resources to fund our own campaign. And, when you work together, you help solve some of those problems. Now, of course, that was in our reset election where all 7 people were running. And it happened that the slate that Nancy and I were on with the mayor won. But we had a very competitive, expensive election. A lot of drama, a lot of mailings and outside accusations. Although I think most of us, we seem to all be getting along now. We did run unopposed, in this last cycle. But there's grumbling about things, of course, and we all make mistakes too. So, and it's tough right now in New Jersey on many levels, taxes and insurance, whatever you want to say. So I think. I think that's, you see, you talk about the political dynamics. Now, I am still a Democratic committee member, but we didn't endorse candidates. And there was, a mix of different parties running, people with different affiliations. And so, and that's nice. I think that can happen.
Can you just repeat, you did not endorse candidates?
The Democratic Party did not. No, we did
Okay.
not.
No.
it happened. Some of us are committee members and we're serving on the council, but the party did not officially make an endorsement. Now,
Was there
I'm
a
not the lawyer.
discussion
I'm
in
not a
term-
lawyer. I don't know if it's legal or not, but
No,
the
it
Democratic
is.
Party did not.
It is legal, so even in a nonpartisan election,
He is a lawyer.
although
Okay.
not practicing election law, but I happen to just look it up.
And we
So
decided to
is-
keep it
so-
separate.
So that's what I was gonna say, was it a conscious decision from your local Democratic Party not to endorse?
Yes.
So it's interesting, because in theory, you can have a nonpartisan ballot, but arguably have a partisan election even in a municipality as nonpartisan. It's more accurate to call something nonpartisan ballots than necessarily elections, because elections, and this is kind of your question, is that you might have a nonpartisan ballot in a municipality, but depending on the decisions of the local parties, it could turn it still into a partisan election. If a party decides to,
Well, I can even change that a little bit. You could have two endorsed candidates running for a single seat, both endorsed by one party. Right? You could have three people running for a directly elected mayor. The Democratic committee endorses two of those three,
yeah.
and maybe the third is just unendorsed, right?
Yeah.
So you could have all sorts of different
Iterations of him.
Ben.
I have to tell you that one of the things I really loved about this process, and I'm a door knocker, I love knocking on all doors. It used to be if you ran for office in partisan Red Bank, the Democrats kind of knocked on the Democratic doors and maybe the unaffiliated doors, and then the
Okay.
Republicans would knock on the Republican doors and maybe the unaffiliated doors. But I love that, we won with a lot of Republican votes as well as unaffiliated votes, and I think that's a great thing. I mean, most issues in towns are potholes, recycling, taking care of facilities, police,
Taxes.
and we actually had the opportunity to revisit the decision of whether or not to go partisan or nonpartisan. We had enough time on the clock where when our team won a majority, we could have changed the course of our charter study and kept partisan elections in, but we chose not to because the town was really done with this party fighting thing. I think that's fair, Nancy. I don't know if you wanted to add anything to that.
No, I think you said that very well.
So let's focus on the directly elected mayor position now. So in practical day-to-day terms, what does the directly elected mayor actually do differently from council members, if anything?
He signs all the paperwork for the borough. He's the figurehead. And he sets the agenda meetings for mayor, for council meetings. And whatever else is in the state statute that the mayor does. He also, because he's a figurehead, he also attends meetings and with people who are, or partnerships of people who want to do business in Red Bank, or they have ideas for Red Bank. So he is the lead and people go to him. One thing that we introduced with when we all got elected is that we have mayor hours on Monday from 4 to 6, where anybody can drop in or you can go in by appointment. And then council hours, which is on Wednesday. Ben and I generally handle the day hours between 10 and 12, and then the evening hours are by appointment. And that's another set of council members that would tend to go to that. So yeah, it's the figurehead role. He receives the reports from committees. He signs all the essential paperwork, for bonds and other types of proclamations, of course. And of course, one of the nice perks is he gets to marry people.
True.
Ben, did you have anything to add to that?
Yeah, I like that. It's really kind of the mayor is sort of the chairman or the chairwoman of the board. In our case, it's the chairman. The mayor has real power in this form of government, but is not absolute. Like one of the other forms that we were looking at as a charter study was the, strong mayor executive. And we have a couple of towns with that. But the mayor under the strong mayor system is really strong, and I've been to those meetings where, the council sort of stands there and can't stop whatever the mayor wants to do. And I really didn't want that. and I fought hard for this, which I think is a reasonable compromise. It's actually stronger than the mayor system. Red Bank had a weak system where the mayor didn't even vote unless it was a tie, and was not just was basically just a spokesperson and didn't have much power. And this system, the mayor, to a degree, controls the agenda. Although, I certainly can make a motion and add something to the agenda.
Mhm.
And the mayor is our leader, as Nancy said, figurehead. Like, when there's a picture that needs to be taken, the mayor represents us. The mayor, and everybody always knows who the mayor is. So that's a good thing and a bad thing. But we, as a group, really make decisions. And I like that it's, a 7 people deliberating. Obviously decisions are also sometimes made in closed door when it's legal stuff or property acquisition, and the various exceptions to the Open Public Meeting Act. So and then of course there's the public comments, and we have commentary at the various council meetings. So anyway, so it's kind of, to me, the mayor in this form of government is sort of the chairman of the board,
Yeah.
but doesn't always get their way.
True. One thing I also want to add is, in practice, what I have observed is that developers who want to bring housing into Red Bank, they will meet informally with the mayor. And, and then the mayor can say, they're like, well, we want to build some condos. And he will, believe first thing he'll say, are these 100% affordable condos? Because, that's just basically how we are. We're very strong advocates for affordable housing here because New Jersey is just a very expensive state at the time. So, those are some of the private meetings that happen. And that's where it's very beneficial. People know who to talk to about things like that. Or if it's worth to open up housing for neurodivergent people. That's something that's very unique that is underway in Red Bank. So, they have the conversation with the mayor. What do you think about this idea? And this is where we'll place it. And, we go back and they'll go back and forth and have that conversation. And then, he will share all of that with us when we have our meetings. So, we're aware of what's going on. It's not too much going on behind closed doors.
And we do pick the deputy mayor.
Yes,
so we
that's it.
we vote among ourselves for the deputy mayor, and that's done in
Yeah.
public.
Which boards and commissions require mayoral appointment versus a simple majority of the council?
The land use boards, planning and zoning, the library board of trustees, the housing authority, and the rest are usually mayor and council. And because we are council members are liaisons to some of the volunteer commissions and committees, we can make suggestions as to who we would like to see on there that is consistent with the vision that we have for town.
Yeah, those are just suggestions the mayor could choose. to go
No, not on the like the committees, like Parks and Rec Committee, but we generally come to an agreement.
Okay.
Did I say that right, Ben?
Yes.
Yeah, there's some appointments that the council has to do entirely. There are some, I don't remember which. This is another one that you're going to pay a lawyer for. There's some statute stuff.
Yeah.
There's some things that the mayor has appointments on. So I'm not sure what you can control in the form. The Faulkner government kind of has these sort of templates for government. So we had to kind of live within that context.
Do residents relate to the mayor as fundamentally different from the council, someone they hold to a higher or a different standard than the other 6 council members?
I think they hold us all to the same standard, but they do recognize the mayor is the lead.
Thank you.
Does that make sense? Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, obviously the mayor has to be more careful because the mayor is the spokesperson for the town. So sometimes our mayor gets in a little trouble because he's got a little sense of humor. And, you have to be careful on dais with the sense of humor.
So the reason we're delving so deep into this is last week when we heard from the mayor of Verona, Christopher Tamburo, where the council selects the mayor. he told us he sees real value in the council always speaking with one voice on who leads it. Now, it seems like, the council, at least from what I've heard so far, it seems like the council and the mayor are relatively in harmony. I guess our worry as charter study commissioners is wondering for the case where there might be disunity between the mayor and the council, and that the mayor starts saying things, as the spokesperson that may not be sort of what is agreed upon by the majority of the council. Do you have thoughts on that? I know it might not be directly relevant to what you're going through at the moment.
It's not directly relevant to what we're going through at the moment, but I know generally if the mayor is saying something that's very different than what the other council members were, because again, policy and legislation requires 7 votes. So, if he's bringing forth some legislation that the council is not really keen on, that, it wouldn't pass. So I think there's like a checks and balances there a little bit. Ben?
Nancy put that well. There is checks and balances in this form. I mean, we were elected together, so we generally agree on everything. But there are exceptions, and I have been in meetings where this, that's what happened in Red Bank for a long time. If the mayor were to be, if we had a toxic relationship, it would be difficult. I mean, I don't think there's any question about it. But the mayor, to get anything done and to pass the budget, he needs. Was it 4 votes with the 7? He needs 4 votes. So you're going to have to. The mayor is really required to get a coalition of us to support. Something if the mayor wants to get something done. I guess if the mayor decides to get up there and just be ridiculous, it's a free country, and even mayors can be ridiculous. So we can't necessarily muzzle that, but I would say that, I certainly would object at the meetings, to inappropriate or ridiculous commentary. And, it would probably lead to a messy next election cycle, I would imagine. As I said earlier, one of the things that I'm so honored to have been on the Charter Study Commission, and I think we've done great things, but you still have to elect competent people. A good form of government helps. But, you can have a great government if everybody's getting along and getting things done, even if it's an obsolete and, broken system. But it helps totally, I think, to have, at least a structure and rules and lines of communication and walls. If the mayor became impossible, and this happens in towns, you guys read it too. There are towns, I'm not going to mention their names, where it's war. And it's hard to get things done, and people quit, and the mayor doesn't get budgets passed, and sometimes the state has to intervene.
Yes, you're absolutely correct.
When something goes wrong in Red Bank, for example, a project failing or a decision backfiring, if it has happened in the last, since you had Charter King, who does the public hold accountable?
Manager. Actually, all of us. The residents will say, "Oh, mayor and council did this," right? So they kind of hold all of us accountable. But if it's a project and day to day, it's really the manager. And because in our former government, we can terminate the manager with a simple majority with due cause, of course. We haven't come across that yet, but we also, our manager also sees as part of his mission is to carry our vision and prevent all of us from looking bad. So we haven't really encountered that.
Thank you.
I can do a little disagreement with Nancy here, though.
All right, how about it?
All right.
So we, unfortunately, I think fortunately, actually, we could just dismiss the manager even without good cause. The manager works at our pleasure, and that's important. Look, if you elect a bunch of crazy people, a good manager is probably going to go. So, but the mayor, there's no tenure for our manager in this system. The manager works at our pleasure, and that's an important thing. So you really are that board of directors when in this form of government. I just wanted to add that.
Thank you.
Do you see that as a potential danger too? Because if you get, you guys all get along and seem fairly rational. If you get a different group in that's not as rational and so, then you might have a great manager or majority might think it's a great manager and you have a small contingent that can come in and just get rid of the person.
You
Again,
want me?
4
Is that
votes.
the, yeah, they need to get the 4 votes, but look,
Need
it
the 4
happens.
votes.
It happens on boards of
Yeah.
educations too, by the way.
Yeah.
It's always better. I think somebody was mentioning it's always better, to have public unity if at all possible. But you can't do that at any price. I mean, if you felt that there was really bad things happening, I would think that, you guys would stand up. You wouldn't probably be on a charter study commission if you weren't interested in good, and you're going to have times, I guess, in the history of all towns where you're going to have, disagreement up here, and it will, and good managers and good superintendents, by the way, because remember I was on the school board, will leave a dysfunctional town. And
Yes.
my town had that problem. We were having a hard time hiring competent, experienced people because of a lot of our own infighting. So, you really hope that you get the people who get elected can somehow find a way to work with each other. It's not always possible. We're all humans. We know some people just are impossible, and you just have to try to work around it as best as you can. I see it happen in towns and boards of education, and it's messy. And I guess that's why I'm paid my $3,200 a year if this comes up. And you have to earn your money.
Well, we happen to have a phenomenal business administrator, but with that, Councilman Corey Biller, Commissioner Corey Biller.
I agree.
Hi, Nancy. Good to see you again.
Yeah.
We spoke a few weeks ago, and Ben, thanks for entertaining my prior questions and comments. Correct me if I'm wrong. Red Bank was 7 members on the committee before you guys changed, so you stuck with it. In the report, it appears that there was some discussion about changing size, but there was some concern over if you reduce size, you would reduce potentially diversity of thought and ideas and things like that. Could you maybe give examples where you saw the 7-person committee or council, whatever we're going to have, size is particularly relevant to a decision making?
Sure. It depends on the size of your town. We're a town with a population of 14 people. We've had 7 members, I guess.
14,000.
I'm sorry, what did I say? Whatever. Yeah, 14,000. Yeah, see, that's 8 o'clock's catching me. 14,000 people, that's our population. We had 7 members on council before. If we went down to 5, there's going to be less diversity of thought. Now, and if we went to 9, which is the other option, then that's essentially you run into the potential for more conflict. One thing that we do have is when we have council committees, which are ad hoc in our case, set by the manager to work on different projects, he or she would have the benefit of getting the input from 3 different council people while on the project, which I think it's a good balance for him or her. So I think that's good, as opposed to, say, if you had a council of 5, then it's, then you have only 2 people. So that extra 3rd person really does help.
I think
And
Nancy answered that very well. I mean, the bigger the pool, the more likely it is that you're going to get somebody who's impossible. But the bigger the pool, also, the more likely it is you'll hopefully have at least 4 sane people on your governing body.
Yeah, there it is. He said it.
And you said, because this was a question I was going to ask, the subcommittees are formed by the manager ad hoc?
Yeah, ad hoc. We used to have standing committees, but when we changed our form of government and I looked into it because we had to change our administrative code, I was like, there was like a DPU committee, a police committee, Parks and Rec, and we didn't need that because the manager is taking care of all of that. So he sets it up, our manager is he, so he sets it up such that we have a budget committee, and it's 3 people, and they go over the budget, and we can put our input in it as needed. There's one for the the Department of Public Works, because they're working on building a new building there, Marine Park. It's a state-of-the-art ADA accessible playground that's going on. There's a committee for that. So that's how things are working for us now.
And you said, sorry, and some of the subcommittees are just 3 members.
Yeah.
Do you find that these subcommittees are still productive in relaying information to the rest of the council and keeping the council informed?
Yeah, they give reports at our council meetings.
Yeah, okay, but that seems clear. Okay, so the mayor of Verona at our last meeting told us he was concerned that 7 members takes or makes management a little bit harder, with more direction going to the manager and additional difficulty in keeping everyone aligned. How do you respond to that from your experience?
In our case, we are pretty much aligned, all of us, on our values. So it's not that much. And I don't think the manager, and we have our strengths in different areas. For example, Dr. Janone is a nurse practitioner, and she has a lot of experience with health and wellness. So she will, come with issues that are relative to health and wellness, or comes with that perspective. Ben has a lot of experience with government and education. He brings that perspective. I'm like Safe Streets, Complete Streets. So I come with things from that perspective, and also for environmentalists. 4 of our council members were on environmental commissions at some point around. So, we're all aligned in that. And our newest council member is, he's a pedestrian advocate. So we don't really run into too many issues, and we can talk with, without breaking OPMA, a total of 3 people. So, if he picks someone, we can bounce questions off with 2 other people, and then we report it back to the manager.
And to the extent is that generally how the manager forms committees, is based on his perceived or known expertise or interests of council members?
Yes, I would say so.
Because one of the things I was going to ask is sort of the time commitment that you guys put forth as council members. And what I was thinking is that if you have ad hoc subcommittees, it's potential that some council members might be busier and committing more time than others. So I guess it got me thinking of how does the manager select, and to the extent that you've seen, is there any discrepancy in the amount of time certain council members are putting in, and then just generally overall, how much time do you guys feel that you spend on council work?
I think it depends on the council member, and how much they're willing to do a lot of research on various projects that they have. For example, Dr. Janone is on the Mayor's Wellness Committee, and they meet every week. That's a very frequent time period, and they put forth events that are beneficial to the members of the town. So that's like one. Ben and I do council hours, so we're always connecting with the residents in a different way. So it's just what you have time to give, and how much you want to get into it. Ben?
Okay, so I'm actually, if you don't mind, I'm going to answer your initial question first, which was, is it a lot more work to deal with 7 people as opposed to 5? I'm probably oversimplifying the comment you were paraphrasing earlier. And I would say, yes, of course it is. It's a little bit more work, but I think that, a manager has to be answerable to people. And I think that, I get very good responses. Like, I try not to take advantage, but I'll send a text, or I'll email, or if I necessary, I make a phone call, and I'm just try to be mindful that I impact also all the other duties that the manager has. I think 5 is pretty. I mean, I don't know how the size of Millburn is, but I think 7's a good number. And then I've been in towns where there's 9. So I think 7 works well, and I think the manager manages his time well with us. Of course, you're going to hire. I mean, our first big test really was going through the process of hiring a manager. and again, you're a board of directors and you interview people and you make a list and you go through and you prioritize what's important. And not every candidate is going to meet everything. And you got to also, deal with the political strings that are being pulled and all those things. So, I think Nancy, um, the rest of that, I don't remember that you started getting in the conversation after that, but I wanted to answer your initial question. Did I hope that's helpful.
Yeah, no, I appreciate it.
And oh yeah, you also asked about, could it be abused? Can
It
the
can.
threat of throwing, firing somebody? Sure, of course. I mean, if you elect 4 angry council members who don't like the manager, is a good bet there's going to be a change, I think.
Mhm.
And so as a board of it, it's one of the things that prepared me well for this, actually, is being on a board of ed. This form of government is very similar to a board of ed. It's not exactly the same, but the superintendent is the chief executive of the school district, and we would do evaluations. And it's one of the reasons this all kind of jumped out at me. Our schools came a long way in the 19 years that I was on there. And we were doing very well, and then our municipal government seemed to be kind of a mess. So, yes, you want to have a good manager feel secure, absolutely, if at all possible, but you got to make sure reasonable people get elected. But at the same time, I like the freedom of, if you have a manager, it's sometimes people have to go, and you have that ability to make that change if you need to also.
I would just like to add to that. We're also mindful of our manager's time because, he has a packed day. And so, we do respect that. And if he's away, he has now gotten used to saying, like, hey, I'm taking, Thursday and Friday off, for a long weekend. So he lets us know. So we know not to text him during that time. And then if we have a list of issues, what I have done is I would take him out to lunch and say, okay, here's my list. I give him the list beforehand, and then, we can go through it in an hour. So that's how we're spending our time with him without taking too much of his time.
Thank you. So
Or as I tell him, here's my list. It's my love language to you.
clearly, his love language is probably food. If you're taking him out to lunch, that's
That too.
smart move. But as far as the subcommittees go, have you experienced, I know it's a relatively short period, instances where there were council members who wanted to participate in a subcommittee and weren't either selected or initially selected? How was that resolved? And the converse to that, where the manager said, hey, I'd like you to serve on this subcommittee, and people said, hey, I don't either have the time or interest or something like that. How is that unfolding?
Right. We've run into that where, due to work constraints, because again, we're not paid very big bucks, so we have day jobs, and where we try to do things that are manageable within that council member's time. But if they can't, they would respectfully decline to be on a particular committee. And that's how it works. Most recently, I was on the budget committee last year and I got put on this year, but we had a new council member come in. And, I think it was very important that that new council member learn how government cheese is made. And so I stepped away from the committee so that he could be on. So, we do things that way. And there's a lot of collaboration, again, without violation of OPMA, but there is a lot of collaboration that happens.
Thank you.
I'll just add to that obviously the mayor and the deputy mayor, and we all know each other and we have our strengths and weaknesses. And it hasn't been, we have a little bit of, I think sometimes there's been a little bit of stress about who's on what, because, sometimes somebody hasn't, but it has worked out. But I think it's true, in all of our lives, somebody wants to do something. And, we also, you can change, just like Nancy talked about. If you have like 4 people who want to be on a budget committee with the manager, the initial budget committee, that's a problem because then it's a quorum. We do have a big meeting on the budget where everybody can go because we advertise it. But so far, I think pretty much what Nancy said was, like if I know somebody wants to be I'm gonna happen to be on the budget committee, I also, I think the manager uses that as a management tool also to sort of gauge the things that the manager wants to move forward. Ben, what does Ben think of this? There's two Bens on the committee. What do you think of this, Christina? And so it's a tool for the manager. And I'm pretty sure, I'm not in the room, but I think the manager basically talks to the mayor and the deputy manager, and then we get a phone call or a text or an email sort of saying, hey, Ben, would you be willing to serve on this and willing to do that? And like, I'm also on a park committee that, with one of our big projects, Marine Park.
Mhm.
Anyway, I just thought I'd add that to what Nancy said.
No, that was illustrative, so thank you. I am now going to pass the baton over to Chairperson Parker Lenz right next to me so that she can. We can't get that right.
You're councilman, you're the chairperson.
Commission.
Just a little
I saw Drucker look over. I guess it got in my head.
It's been a long-
Joanna over
it's been
here
a
is
long
gonna
week.
start talking
Yeah,
now.
I'm just a commissioner. Hello, thank you for joining us. Very informative so far. I would like to turn the discussion more to nonpartisan elections versus partisan elections and slate dynamics. So I don't know if you know that Milburn has currently partisan local elections.
Yeah.
Red Bank previously had partisan elections and moved to nonpartisan, obviously. So for the residents watching, what does that mean? How campaigns work, how they are funded, and how candidates reach voters? I'm happy to repeat each part necessary.
Sure, I can start with that. Our campaigns, well, we've only had 2 elections so far to go by since we moved to nonpartisan, but before we had partisan elections with the party line system. And again, it was, whoever was selected to run on by their particular party, that's how they ran. And Red Bank is a town that's 2-to-1 Democrat, so usually it was a Democratic candidate that got selected. When we ran for our first election, and of course our second election, we decided to run as slates. There is an issue of cost. Again, we knew each other. All of us have served in some volunteer committee. So, there was a natural affinity there, and that helped. And how the campaigns are funded, well, we're all Democrats, so, we'd go and host events and we would get donations, as well as endorsements. We got endorsements from a League of Conservation Voters. And this last go round, there were a couple of endorsements as well from Clean Water Action, if I'm not mistaken, Ben. And so essentially and Ben is more of the campaign guy, so he will give you, how the cheese is actually made there on the campaign side. And how do candidates reach voters? Oh, one cool thing is when you were getting signatures to get on the ballot, one thing that worked when you're getting on a slate is you could carry the paperwork for everyone on your slate. So you could talk to one voter and get signatures. So it was faster to get the signatures that are required. And again, also in a nonpartisan election, it doesn't matter their party affiliation. So you have the whole town to reach. How do candidates reach voters? We've done TikToks, YouTubes, and our most effective way, because we're only a 1.7 square mile town, is by knocking on doors. And it helped us. We're running as a slate in that respect because, there was always somebody going out, and that made a huge difference. And I defer to Ben. Door knocker extraordinaire.
Well, I mean, I don't like kind of the New Jersey tradition of party bosses, and it's one of the, and I was part of that kind of, I wasn't a Democratic committee member back when we started fighting with each other and talking about Democrats. There was a lot of drama and infighting, and it had gone on for a while, and sort of secret plots to push somebody out that wasn't liked, and it was just this sort of very strange, party apparatus here that sometimes good things happen, sometimes good things didn't happen. I'm very glad that that's gone, because it was also completely non-transparent. All of a sudden there was a candidate slate that ran for Democrats and Republicans. No one knew where they came from. Sometimes they lived in town for a year, maybe, and so that was quite bizarre over the years, and so I'm glad that's really kind of gone. I think that having a petition system, which has its own problems, but it's, I don't, how many do we need? 50, 60 signatures, Nancy, each? I don't remember. It's
It
not
depends on every election. Yeah. It's a
right.
certain percentage.
There's a formula, there's a state formula, but anybody can run I think that slates are going to happen because of the cost of elections, and people seem to like kind of a slate. I guess it makes it easier, sort of a vision, like your marketing, really. We want, whatever it is, lower taxes, or we want nonpartisan elections. And but you don't have to do it that way. It seems that, in my case, I really don't have the money to self-fund. I think we spent 80,000 in that reset election, and our opponents spent 110,000. That's a lot of money.
Seven candidates.
Yeah, I mean that's a lot of money. And then we had an unaffiliated, somebody who was not even either running. Actually, and it's funny, her place was right in the middle on the ballot. It just ironically turned because they had to do a random drawing. So she was right in the middle, and then we had the two slates on either side. And so that's how it went. But towns have different dynamics with us. I wouldn't just rely just on us, but I think because of the very expensive process, and also another problem with elections, and this is true whether you're running partisan or nonpartisan, you got to do really good record keeping. You have to have a treasurer who knows what they're doing, files all these crazy things at the right time, or the state's going to, this is true on boards of ed too, by the way. You really, if you spend any money at all, you really have to have that lawyer. There he is. I'm pointing at you. You have to have that lawyer who knows what they're doing, kind of monitoring your finances. Now, I believe in, if you don't spend any money, it's relatively safe. But if you raise any money, you have to, every $100 plus donation, you have to have account, and it's a lot of work.
And it's reported in ELEX, so it's open to the public.
Right. So so that's it. It's really marketing, I think. You have a slate in a competitive election running together kind of makes sense if at all possible. Although some towns don't have it. It's funny, I do follow other towns and they have similar forms of government, and sometimes it's, 5 different people running their own campaigns. But by and large, I think tickets seem to be the way most campaigns seem to be going. And of course, if you're partisan, you're running a ticket also. I mean, the Democratic team is here and the Republican team is there. And where's that independent candidate again? Let's go find them. Oh, they're down there by the North Pole.
Yeah.
Okay, well, thank you for that.
I don't know if that answered your question.
Yes, this dives a little bit deeper, I think, regarding the Red Bank's 2023 election. You did talk about how slates were organized, but we just wanted to dive a little deeper, how slates were organized that election and how that carried over into how the council governs.
Yes, I can answer that, and I'm going to be very truthful. There was a lot of
Wait, Nancy, were
dysfunction.
you not being truthful on your?
Oh no, I've been truthful. No, I'm going to tell it to you very straight.
They busted you,
There was
Nancy.
so
They
much-
busted you.
I know, there was so much dysfunction.
Just for the record, Nancy.
I know. No, there was so much dysfunction in Red Bank's government at the time. When we formed our slate and we were running, we knew we had to hit hard, hit fast, and go in. And there were 2 council people that were running from the existing council members at the time that were part of the team of dysfunction, for want of a better word. It was really bad. And in turn, they had shadow, how do I describe, the former party chair was aligning, getting people to run against us. And that's basically what happened. So it became of, do you want to have a new vision, or here are these guys with the old vision? I think that's what happened. And then we have a perennial candidate who runs as an independent, and that person was in the middle. So that happened. It was a very interesting election with the dynamics between our side and their side. And one of the guys who was running for mayor at the time from the other slate, he was president, who is president, sorry, of the hospital that is the largest employer in town. and with whom at the time we had open lawsuits. So, it was like there was a major conflict of interest there. And, we had to address it, which we did with a Dr. Seuss book. So, a Dr. Seuss little pamphlet. And I think that's what happened. So, how that carried over into how the council governs, I would say that on the other side, there are people with a lot of egos and they wanted what for themselves. And I could say that our council does not have egos. We're just focused on what's good for the town. And I think people were able to see through that when when election time came around. Ben, have at it.
I don't know that. I mean, Nancy, you put it so well. You always can be my spokesperson for sure. Um, it was a messy election. And there was a lot of bad blood from all the primary fighting that the Democrats we had among ourselves, and the Republicans jumped in, and it was a circus. We survived it. I think Nancy, certainly put our point of view there. And obviously the voters made a decision. We won, comfortably. And we were outspent. So that was great. And then we ran unopposed. The four of us who ran in that 2.5 years election ran unopposed. And that's, of course there's grumbling,
Sure.
and there's going to be people, no matter what you do, who are angry and upset. Even if you do the things they ask, they're still angry and upset. That's the funny part. But and also you make mistakes. You're human. You can't help it. You're going to do things. You're going to disappoint people. You're going to forget to fix that street light, that's in front of somebody's house who's been telling you for 4 years they want that street light fixed. And so they're never going to vote for you ever again, Ben, because you never fixed the street light. And then, and I own it. I own that. So,
Ben, do you have any hypothesis as to why? Because it's very interesting that you would have such a contentious election, and from what it sounds like, a lot of consternation and issues before the election for years, and yet all of a sudden you change the form of government. Do you attribute any of what seems like a calm after that storm to the new form of government? Meaning you had unopposed elections after having such issues beforehand and intense battles. Do you think?
I think I can answer it. I think that I think actually that number one is that we were exhausted. I'd like to give us all credit for being like the brilliant council and mayor. And of course we are, Nancy. But I think the town was really exhausted from having, a blood sport election. It was really, a lot of unpleasant things. And, and in some ways, the primary, for me, speaking for myself, the primary is worse because it's your friends,
Right.
and it's just also, this is where a small town is a disadvantage. You know everybody and everybody knows your business. And it's not impersonal, it's all very personal. And you go to the supermarket and the guy yells at you in front of the Captain Crunch in the cereal aisle, and so, I mean, that literally happens, right? So, in some ways, small town is harder than if you were in Newark, where, you don't really know that many people. You run into people all the time. And a lot of them are your friends, and you go to school, your kids go to their schools with them, So, anyway, so I think exhaustion, and I think that we are, for the most part, keeping our promises. We ran with, as Nancy said, with the vision. We're addressing a lot of the things. We made some mistakes, but I think that people have looked at the overall thing, and I guess we probably got it right, maybe 80-90% of the time. And also, even when we were running unopposed, at first we didn't know we were going to run unopposed because you file. We start campaigning, we start talking to people, we start doing little events, we put up little videos, we start answering questions, and also the process of getting petitions, of course, is a way of organizing. You need to get that many signatures. So you're going to the people, and getting signatures, and they're asking questions. And sometimes it's not always easy to get those signatures. Ben, you said you were going to get that street light fixed, or whatever. And, you said you're going to lower taxes, and my taxes are higher, and then you got to give a reasonable answer. And then, when you're talking one-on-one, most people, I think, are reasonable. And
we never said we were lowering taxes.
I know. I just pulled that out as general,
Right.
Yeah.
Any politician who says that, I don't trust them. because
Right,
I've never
but
seen taxes go down,
but you get what
unfortunately.
I'm trying to say,
Yeah,
guys.
I
You know,
do.
right?
I
You know,
do. Yeah.
and so it was an honor to run unopposed, actually, but it was exhausting that because you had we had the primary messy fight that was brutal, and I think what triggered it, I think somewhere in you asked what kind of triggered that. It was infighting in the Democratic Party that sort of triggered this whole meltdown, if you like. You know, there was the chairman was asserting his power, and he has a lot of power in local parties. Chairmen do. Republicans and Democratic chairmen have a lot of power, or chairwoman. And they chair was pushing out some people that he didn't like for whatever reason, and so that led to sort of a civil conflict among us, and it didn't resolve the way the chairman at the time wanted to resolve, but it did resolve. I don't know if that made any sense. Did I cover it, Nancy?
Yeah.
Yeah, at the time when we had partisan elections, you have a Democratic committee who works with the chair at the local level to help pick the candidates that would get the nomination for the party line. And then when you have the party line system, if you're not selected, you're off in ballot Siberia. And that would happen a lot. So with the old infighting that came around, there was a three-step process. First was the Charter Commission to study the form of government. Then there was a change of the Democratic Party leadership where someone got together and they ran a whole slate of Democratic Party candidates, which shocked the existing establishment. So basically, it was a war between old guard and new guard. And the new guard got the majority of the Democratic seats, which led to a lot of bitterness. And also, at that time, there was a primary because the mayor was up, and the existing mayor did not get picked to get the Democratic Party nomination. And he said, he didn't want to run. He didn't want to run against the guy that had been picked. So there was some scrambling around, and we got somebody they got our current mayor. That's how he got in. So, deadline was 3:00, 2:30. He had all the signatures that same day. We recruited him, got him in, and he beat the Democratic incumbent, the party selected person for mayor. And so it was an upset. So therefore, all during that year, there was just contention, contention, contention. So that's what happened. So then after the Charter Study Commission passed in 23, what happened is that the old guard still had a lot of, they were still very contentious. And that's who they picked the other slate to run against us. So that's why our reset election was kind of crazy. And we have hyper-local news reporting. So everyone in town was seeing everything that was going on. And trust me, they were pretty much exhausted by the time our reset election came around. Did I get that right, Ben?
Yes.
I'm getting exhausted listening to it. It was
I know,
quite
it was-
something
it
to
was a
live through,
mess.
and I'm glad it's behind us.
Yes,
Yeah, so I do not miss local partisan elections, I assure you.
right.
Well, thank you. Well, you pre-answered question 20, so we're going to move on to the next one. Roughly 43% of Melbourne's registered voters are unaffiliated. Under our current system, any of them who wants to run a viable campaign essentially has to affiliate. So they've got to pick the party and come out of the closet saying who they are, or who they want to be a part of, or who they accidentally became a part of, right?
It's totally true.
Because
Yeah.
the chair may not want you, even
Right.
though you are with that particular party, you might
Mhm.
not get that. I mean, we actually saw that with Cory by accident one year, and it was just a surprise and timing and whatever. So has Red Bank's nonpartisan structure changed who chooses to run?
Yes, anybody can run. And again, it's up to the resident to do their research on their candidates and pick who would best serve them. So, yes. And
So,
Yeah.
I would say that the answer is yes, but it turns out that the side that won, we're all happen to be Democrats. I think so you could, our critics would say, it's not really, they would say that's they wouldn't agree with that point of view necessarily. I would say though that in the last that reset election, we certainly had a lot of variety there. People from different parties were running, and they could have run this time if they wanted to get the signatures. And I thought we were going to be opposed, but they, for whatever reason, maybe it was the exhaustion. I don't know. They didn't run anybody against us. But there is no apparatus anymore, which is what you said earlier is what really bugged me. You had to kind of declare if you really wanted to be a viable candidate in town. No one would even be within close to winning an election unless they were either Republican or a Democrat. I mean, running as an unaffiliated voter was basically crazy. And I just think that's wrong. And I say that as a Democratic committee member, I think that's wrong. And I'm very happy that we kept our word, the Democratic. Maybe that's one of the reasons we won. We kept our word and followed through on making this promise that we made to voters that we were going to go for a nonpartisan form of government. Like I said, we had the window where we could have put in a Jersey fix-it, and all of a sudden the boat changes, and we're going to go with partisan after all because we controlled the party at that point. We could have kept the Jersey, we could have kept control, and when we won control of the Democratic Party, we could have kept with the partisan option, but we chose not to. And I think that that was one of the good decisions we made, and I think the voters rewarded us for that. I hope that made some sense.
It made sense. Thank you. That's the end of my portion. I'm going to turn it back to our chairman.
All right, we're in the part that we're closing up here. 3 years into the new structure, what has worked better than you expected? Ben, you want to start us off on this one?
Yeah, let him start.
Yeah, Ben, start us off on this
now
one.
you're messing me up again. A good thing I didn't put on the mute.
There you go.
Well, that's our
End-of-year
report that we just
report.
got from the manager. I would say that kind of what is the most well, it's hard. You got all my memories about the awful elections and how awful it was. It took a toll on us, our community. That last mess of election and personal. I mean, there are people who are never going to be my friends again and never forgive me. Some neighbors. And I love them, and I'm hoping that over time, some of that, I think it's over time. There's some healing that's happening, but it was very hard. I think I cried actually at the charter study meetings. I did because it was really awful, and so it's wonderful that we don't have that. I mean, I make mistakes now, and it's hard not pleasing everybody when when you're a council member, you can't please everybody, and people have, and it is upsetting sometimes when people that you disappoint people who believed in you and they think you betrayed them now. Because when you have to make decisions, and you really can't please everybody if you really want to do your job well. Sometimes, you do have to fire somebody or do something unpleasant, and it's awful, but I am paid $3,000 a year. And so,
Better than expected.
you want to elaborate on that if you?
Sure. I'm actually I'll give you a year of highlights of what we've done. Through our manager, they established the Department of Recreation and Human Services, and that was in our management enhancement report from 2018. So that's something that our current manager was able to do. There's organization leadership and operation improvements. There's now a deputy director of our DPU. People think that one thing that always happens is people look at the population and they go, oh, Red Bank is a small town. But the reality is during the day, because of the hospital and businesses, we get up to 50,000 people, and that's a lot to manage. So we hired a deputy director. There's a shared services agreement with our library. So we clarified our lines of communication and how we work with other organizations. We have under redevelopment and economic investment, our train station redevelopment plan is advanced. The DPU facility improvement, completion of the streetscape. We did safer crosswalks. We also received a lot of recognition. So there's mobility and national recognition for safe routes to school. We got our gold status again. And also Red Bank was recognized as top 10 nationwide for a complete streets policy. because we set that by ordinance. And we have a Complete and Green Streets Committee that works, that meets regularly to go through the issues and keep the communication in and handle the issues. We did quick mini build projects, and we got some bike racks that we got from, we got a quick grant to put in some bike racks from the National Real Estate Association, because while they were not very happy with the Airbnb ordinance that we put in once we got elected, that was a lot better than what the previous council had installed. So they said, hey, I have this grant for you. So, that's a good way that we get money. And of course, for capital investment, the Marine Park, and redevelopment of housing. So, we have a lot of, we have community meetings, there's whole engagement, and the manager has also hired staff and does a lot of forward-facing communication to the public. And a quick example is that our last snowstorm that we had the police going around putting flyers on the cars to get them off the street and where they can park them. They were going around with bullhorns. They were getting text messages, emails, phone calls, and of course posted all over social media. So, this town really has been doing a great job in communicating issues to the residents. And I mean, I cited that one as an exception, but it goes on every day. You find out what streets are closing, when when there are any changes to garbage picks up and stuff. And the cultural shift of the employees, they no longer have PTSD. They actually are happy. They want to come to work. And, when you have a staff that's happy where they're working, they're performing well. And I would say that they're punching way above their weight. Ben?
Thank you. Thank you.
I hope that wasn't too much.
No. Ben started off.
Ben's on mute.
Oh, Ben,
Ben's
you're
on
on mute. Ben.
You're on mute.
So,
There you go.
There you go.
I mean, the nice thing is we hired a manager because they were the most qualified individual that applied for the job, as opposed to making a political decision, really. I mean, we made a political decision in that we're making a bet that running our borough well will pay off politically, and we really, and I shouldn't even say it, but I don't believe the manager shares our party affiliation. Actually, we
No,
hired
he doesn't.
the best qualified person to run our town. And that person, as you could tell from what Nancy just said, is really getting a lot done. And we're doing our job in supervising and having input. And the managers are being creative and making suggestions and motivating our team and staff. And there's proper evaluations going on, And in our case, in Red Bank, it's kind of revolutionary. And so, that to me is the most significant thing. And I'm so grateful to had a small part in that.
Next, what has been harder than you expected?
You and me or Nancy?
Yeah, go ahead, Ben.
Well, I think I answered that. I mean,
Yeah,
the
you did.
emotional impact really of people you love being angry at you, and there's nothing you can say to change it. I mean, I was probably involved in party politics for all my adult life here in town, and then I have friends too, and then people I grew up with and my kids grew up with that got furious and are furious about some things, and I do my best, and I apologize when I've made mistakes, but I try to keep the mistakes to a minimum. But that it takes an emotional toll. There's no question. So I think that's my answer. That's the hardest part, is the emotional toll of change and making decisions that are hard.
Yes.
Thank you. Nancy, if you could change one thing about how Red Bank designed its new government, what would it be?
I can't really think of anything. But going to the other question, what has been harder than you expected? I would say that making sure our ordinances align with the current form of government, because we had to change our administrative code. But as we're moving along, a couple of years, we do find some things that do need tweaking. So we found that. And also letting residents really understand that as council members, we don't get involved in day to day, and we focus on policy and legislation. But one thing that I do see that's very good coming out of our council hours is we're sort of like a traffic cop. We direct them where they can go to get the answers they need, but we can't do it for them. So that's what I would say.
Thank you. All right, last question. Ben, is there anything about Red Bank's council manager form of government that we haven't touched upon and that you think our commission should be considering?
I think about that. I think it's a very good form of government. It's probably overall the best form. And in my previous life, in my 20s, I was a reporter, so I was exposed to a lot of different forms of government, and I was a municipal reporter back when we had newspapers. Remember that?
Yeah.
I used to work for a community newspaper. And I don't like the mayor having quite as many appointments as the mayor have. I wish the council did all the appointments, but it's a little pet thing. It's state statute. You can't do too much about it. I wish I could customize and tweak a little bit some of the stuff in the Faulkner Act. I don't remember all of it now, but I think on balance it's pretty good. I may wind up regretting having in this form of government that we have. There's referendum and initiative. Now we haven't had a problem with that, but there are towns that have. There was one neighboring town, where there was a referendum actually to try to repeal the nonpartisan part of it. But that went down. By the way, I think nonpartisan is very popular. I mean, most voters are like, yeah, let's get the partisan politics out of local government. I mean, Republicans, Democrats, and unaffiliated voters. I think we won a majority of Democrats in that recent election, not just yeah, so I guess that I think it is probably the best form. The strong mayor form of government is really strong mayor. So you got to make sure that you elect a good mayor in that form of government. In this form, if you wind up with some some drama, it'll be rough. But I think that probably reasonable will prevail most of the time. The worst thing will be that you're going to probably be switching managers, because managers, are going to want predictability and stability. And if you're doing a lot of infighting, you're not going to get the best managers. That's the one thing that would probably happen. But you might wind up working out okay. Some towns seem to move along even with some drama. And maybe they'll find an in-house manager that'll be fine. And I think that I don't know the gentleman who mentioned that there is certain, you don't want to have a circus. It's not going to help anybody. So, you want reason and issue-based decision making and rational thought primarily. You're never always going to have it, but if you want a good help, and good leadership, you're going to need to have, you're going to have to show somebody who wants to work for you that this is a good place to work. Mm-hmm. And most good managers are probably not going to want to be part of a shit show.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Fair enough.
Nancy, you have anything else to add to that, or you good?
No, I agree with Ben. I mean, initiative and referendum was one of the things we're like, okay, it comes with it, but it could be. But I also know from the state, they raised the percentage of signatures you need in order to bring forth initiative and referendum, which gives us some protection. So I do like that. And also, just going back to the strong mayor form of government, the mayor hires the administrator, and the administrator only reports to the mayor. So, if you don't have, if your council's not aligned with the mayor, there isn't really much that you can do, because the mayor is not even obligated to attend council meetings. So, it could be a little bit out of touch. We had a case in Tinton Falls where the mayor was first elected at 94, and then he got reelected at 97, but he wasn't really doing the mayoral stuff. It was all the manager. But so, you have to be very careful in who you elect, because that person is choosing the administrator who's going to run the town as well.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Thank you. And
thank you.
Thank you both.
It was a pleasure and honor being here.
Thank you. Would you folks mind taking a couple of questions from our public?
Sure.
Not at all. I'd be fine.
Okay, good. Does anyone have a question? Jay?
First off, fantastic. Thanks for your time this evening. It's very much appreciated. I don't think you mentioned that, but I assume it's a 4-year term?
Yes,
A 4-3 staggered election, so 4 1 year, 3 the next year.
the
And
next
that's
2 years. Yeah,
right. Every 2 years, it's either 4 or 3. Okay.
yes.
So I assume you chose that way so that you'd have some continuity at each election
Yes.
versus having everything all on one.
Correct.
With regard, and you brought up some, and I think it was Ben who brought up the cost and kind of the need to run a slate. Not the need, but it definitely helps with the canvassing you need to do, the signatures you need to get, the funds you need to raise. What is, and I think you said you've got 7 Democrats that ran on a slate together and you weren't challenged, so it's the same from the reset election. What, in your view, would be the likelihood of a single independent, non-democratic candidate being viable for election in the current form that you have now for elections?
I think that candidate would have an equal chance, provided they can raise the funds, they can campaign and do what is necessary to win. Yeah, it would be a lot of work for them to do, though, honestly. Yeah.
I mean, I run a small business, so I mean, it's a consideration for me. I mean, I've seen it though. I mean, I have, as I said in previous life, I've covered other towns. I
Yes.
worked in the city of Long Branch, for example, which, by the way, is a strong mayor form of government. And that exactly happened there more than once when I was working there as a reporter. There was a gentleman, I can still remember his name, John Padilla, actually. He ran, he wasn't part of any party as far as I could remember. I think he became a Republican. And he ran a very determined individual, young man, and went door to door and got himself elected. And he did spend some money. I mean, that's the thing. I mean, a lot of us think, oh, well, I've talked to people who want to run. Well, I want to run and maybe get elected, but I don't want to spend any money. But reality is, if you don't do mailings and something like that, where people don't seem to take you that seriously, although you can do it, with a flyer, go to a door, and, in a small town like Red Bank, it's doable. I mean, the problem is really in a bigger town, where you don't, and everybody kind of knows each other here. You could do it here, absolutely. I mean, in a worst case scenario, let's say, I started not getting along with anybody, and they didn't want me on the ticket, would I run by myself, last cycle? I probably would have.
Mhm.
And I think I would have had a good shot. I mean, fortunately, we are able to work with each other and we compromise. And I do my best to listen. And I've had disagreements with some people on my ticket, and I've apologized sometimes for things I regret saying. So, I think that's answering your question. But I've seen it happen in other towns that are nonpartisan. Now we're new. I think that we're not going to be as lucky in the next cycle in the sense that, I'm on my team and I want the 3 people that I ran with to win re-election. I suspect that there probably will be opposition in the next election cycle. So maybe the next time you interview us, we'll have more to tell. But it does happen in towns. It helps if you run in a smaller town. Also, probably social media helps. Like, you can get on TikTok. You can do a lot of these things to generate. But even in those places, they monetize you now. Like, if you want to have lots of plays on Facebook and Instagram, they say, "Hand me the cash." And there's now rules in the state of New Jersey on paying for that stuff. I mean, you personally, like if you use Facebook personally, they don't charge you. But if you start promoting yourself as a candidate, they want your money.
Mhm.
And then you have to report it.
Yep.
We're going to make the lawyers all rich. I should have been a lawyer.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Again, thank you for
Yep.
your elections. Are they held in November?
Yes, That's the first ordinance we passed when we got elected, was moving the elections from May to November, which gave everybody an extra 6 months, but it makes sense because that's when people are accustomed to voting. The advantage is we don't have to work so hard in our primary, so our election season actually starts a little bit later. And if you're politically inclined, and the seats that are above us, county, state, and national, have primaries, so it gives you free time to help work on your candidates of your choice at that level.
And thank you.
Okay, but thank you so much for having us, and I wish you
Yes.
good luck.
Thank you so much.
Thank you
Thank
so
you.
much. Have a great rest of the evening.
Thank you.
All right. Sorry I couldn't be there in person. I would have enjoyed it.
Appreciate your time.
Thanks.
Thank you.
All right.
So we log off now?
Yeah,
Or
yeah.
you-
Goodbye.
Okay.
All right.
Bye.
Nice meeting all of you.
You too, thank you.
Right. Joanna, I know you have some community outreach, your ongoing community outreach.
It's ongoing. I think it's systematic. I feel like at this point, enough people are hearing about us. I think Jerry and I talked about increasing, once again, discussing Happy Milburn at a next juncture when it's a little bit more pressing for the public to hear, and express their opinions. So we aren't ready for that because we still have so many people who don't live in Milburn there, that it's just going to bring in potentially troll activity that we're not prepared to deal with. I think we really, really want to keep our community, voices in our heads rather than having an international, oh, I used to live in Milburn, 60 years ago or 20 years ago. And I think it's important to keep it local.
Thank you. All right.
Do we also want to discuss briefly, because I know Joanna, you and I talked about this, one weekend, maybe next weekend, having a
Yes.
sort of,
Yes.
not like a public forum, but just a time where all of the commissioners can meet in public, we'll publicly notice it, maybe have some refreshments.
Yeah,
invite the
almost like
community.
hours.
Like office
like-
hours.
Yeah, like office hours. So
Mhm.
we're thinking of March 22nd. Having something a little bit more informal and definitely being available to answer questions, because I think even by then we'll be, a couple more interviews into it. So we'll have more opinions potentially formulated or more confusion on our part. We'll see which direction it's going to go in after, the next few sessions. So yeah, I think that would be really great to get that posted somewhere, and maybe even we get like Instagram posts boosted so that we appear in front of people. So increase because now I think people generally who know what's going on or have heard from other people like, okay, we're happy with this. We don't always have to tune in. That's why I like to do, that sort of comment. But I do think we really want to hear from more people for our final decisions, and, boosting those posts might be good just from our own channels. I'm happy to do that. I know I can do that through work. So we can figure out how much we want to budget for that.
Do you want me to get the Bauer Center if we all agree on March 22nd?
Yeah, this is a good spot.
I also think, or in just a hypothesis, that we have brought in so many different perspectives, like between all the interviews, that I wonder if some people are like, what, my perspective has been announced, has been heard, so what's I don't need to go in and express it.
Well, I think that is partially true, but I think if there are what happens toward the end of these studies, as per our attorney and as per just our experience in watching anything in our town that happens once things get voted on or it's too late, people get angry. They're like, well, you didn't consider this perspective. But if you're not part of the engagement and we didn't consider it, we are not omniscient. And we are 5 people who are trying to get as many opinions as possible. We're meeting with as many smart people who, ran against us and lost, but they're smart and we want to get their opinions. So that's another lots of different perspectives and all the people we talk to. So I feel like we've targeted so many, but if we can just increase that engagement even a little bit, the perspectives will, inform us. So I'd rather say we've been there. We've tried to get all of you.
I think we need to open up the opportunity so that we can feel secure that once we are putting together a report, that we have given everybody the fair opportunity.
Right,
to-
I mean, there's only so much you can do at some point, you try to get the engagement there, or at least get the opinions, but let's do some boosts and we'll get into the community messaging. I see a mayor in the audience. Maybe it can become a little weekly thing for the next couple weeks to announce the March 22nd, because I think that will be the real important one to get as many people here as possible for us to really hear the last things.
With
3 p.m.
3 o'clock?
Yeah, 3 p.m. would be great.
Nice before dinner,
Yeah,
so it doesn't interfere with dinner plans, it's not too late on a Sunday, but.
I think
people can still
refreshments
do
might be
stuff.
helpful
Yeah.
because people like food and, beverage. So, yeah.
Yeah, we'll get the mayor to pay for it.
I don't know, maybe Joanna will make some focaccia.
Focaccia?
There we
A
go.
little sourdough focaccia from.
All right,
Maybe the reason people haven't been attending is because we do this during the week, and we have tried to do Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday.
Yeah, but
And I know
every
it's
time-
been
Yeah.
chaotic for everyone, but that was intentional. It
Yeah, so
wasn't.
we can have each day
Yeah.
covered, but I think as you and I talked about, for some people, weekends are just a bit better and, so,
Maybe if we make it more like a social thing, like
yes,
that,
yes.
Right.
less of a business meeting.
Yeah.
All right, I'll get that noticed.
All right.
We'll start feeding my starter for the sourdough.
Public comment. To speak during the public comment period, please follow these instructions. Ensure your Zoom display name shows your first and last name. Click the raise hand button. You'll be called upon in order and promoted to panelists. Please turn on your video when called to speak. Clearly state your full name and whether you're a Millburn resident or business owner to facilitate an orderly meeting and permit all to be heard. Please limit your comments to 3 minutes. A reminder that the public comment period is an opportunity for residents to share their views with the commission. Commissioners will not respond to questions or engage in dialogue during your speaking time, but will carefully consider all comments. At the end of the public comment period, questions and discussions may be addressed at the chair's discretion. Is there anyone on Zoom, Dr. Khan?
Does anyone on Zoom wish to be heard? You can raise your hand. No one wishes to be heard on Zoom.
Okay, anyone from the public?
Just thank you for this evening.
Well, we want to go back and address your
Jay?
questions, right?
Yeah, I'd like to finish my comments.
Oh, yes.
Yeah.
That's acceptable to the commission.
Yes.
Yeah, what I had started to talk about was the comment on potholes.
I'm
and
sorry, Jake.
The what?
The comment, historically that potholes don't have a Democratic or Republican aspect to them. Fully understand the same way at the federal government, Social Security recipients don't get differentiated by whether they're a Democrat or a Republican. There are, however, aspects of local government that are partisan in nature, not aligned with national politics, but politics at the local level. So if we move to nonpartisan elections, that is one piece of the puzzle, but that is different than nonpartisan governing. If we continue to have parties that drive slates, that pick candidates, endorse candidates, fundraise for candidates, those parties will continue to have influence in the local government on such matters as picking who's going to be on local commissions. So if there is one party, and you can pick your choice, Democrat, Republican, Green Party, whoever it is, has a majority, they can use that influence to dictate who's going to be on the rec commission or on the you name it commission, right? Or they can even decide to disband a committee and reform that committee if they so desire. So I think one of the important things that this commission can do is think about recommendations in addition to whether or not there's going to be partisan or nonpartisan elections as to what can be done to ensure that we have a nonpartisan government and that the actions that the government take are nonpartisan in nature. And I'm not saying that happens today. I'm just saying that it's something that we need to really understand and think about as we go through and evaluate our government. One of the suggestions I made when we met earlier was that we bring the party leads and interview them publicly, the head of the Democratic and Republican parties, and ask them, if we move to nonpartisan elections, what are you going to do differently? I love Mayor Sakamandi's comment that he would consider unaffiliating if we move to nonpartisan elections. I think that's a great thing.
Consider it. I said I would do it.
Oh, you said you would do it. Well, I misheard you then. Even better. So I think that's the one of the functions of the commission is to make recommendations beyond what the form of government is going to be and the terms, et cetera. I think we should focus on driving to as much nonpartisanship in our government as possible. And that's my comment. And if you have thoughts or feedback, would love to hear it.
Thank you.
Who wants to progress?
Is there any comment
Oh.
before we address?
I'll make a comment. Sure, you can make a recommendation to the local political committees that they not endorse candidates, but at the end of the day, you have a LEC, you can look at who's funding campaigns. I think it'll become obvious if, the party on the state level or the county level is getting involved in a campaign, you're gonna see that on a LEC. So I think there's a certain level of transparency there. Personally, I think that the parties are gonna sort of recede into the background because I think you're gonna start to see people come together. There's a lot of independents in town that have not had the opportunity to get involved in politics because they didn't want to have to choose a side. I think you're going to start to see things to be more like the BOE, where you have, if there are slates, they come together based on people that have shared values and interests, more so than political parties. So I think if you go nonpartisan, I think that the parties are going to sort of fade into the background.
Joanna actually had, when you interviewed a former TC and that woman that wanted to run, that didn't have, she didn't have enough money, and she was going to be unaffiliated. She was a very, very smart person, but she felt she felt she couldn't win, so I totally agree with what Jay and, has to say.
I will say though, as far as the money concerned, and look, I
remember when you
I ran in a primary essentially as
Yeah.
an independent, but in a Democratic primary.
Right.
So I didn't have
Campaign
any,
fee, remember?
I didn't have any party money, and so
Right.
it was, look, if I thought I had the support to run and get elected, I reached out to friends and neighbors, and it was awkward and it was difficult, but I had to ask for money because I wasn't gonna fund it all myself, and that's what ultimately it was. It was a tight race. I don't think it came down to money. They definitely outspent me. I don't know if I had spent another $1,000, would that have got me then another 20 something votes that I needed? No, I think it came down to a party machine and it was a primary and
Ballot
people,
Siberia.
I was talking about ballot Siberia. I was definitely in ballot Siberia. And, I do think nonpartisan elections is a step to, because if you don't have the parties nominating, if you have and it's kind of interesting because at least Red Bank had primaries. We don't essentially have primaries. We have the parties selecting the people, and so there is a lot of times they're hand choosing people because they know they can have the influence over the people. So if you take that away, at least from the elections, even if parties start getting in and trying to support certain slates, there's still some level of independence of those candidates because hopefully they're running because they're self-selecting as opposed to now a lot of people recently are running because the party tapped them on the shoulder and said, hey, we think you should run, and they probably never even considered running in their life before. So the idea of trying to root out completely parties, I don't know that you can necessarily do that. And we've heard from a lot of townships. Interestingly enough, some of the townships we talk to, the whole idea of party interference, whether it's on the county or local level, is just foreign to them. And so when we talk to them, like Shauna and I were talking to, it was actually Madison, and They really don't have party issues at all. I mean, to him, it was like the concept was.
And that's partisan or nonpartisan, just so the public knows.
They're not partisan.
They're nonpartisan,
Uh,
just it's,
But
they may not know.
it probably just takes time, I guess, because, you know, Red Bank had been partisan, it's only recent. It sounds like they had tremendous partisan issues, and it only took one election cycle, and seemingly they didn't even have a contested election after that. So I do think, you know, if we're concerned about partisanship in our government, the big thing is the election. And then after that, we can sort of take those other steps to help root it out otherwise potentially.
Well,
We have also, when Dr. Khan and I interviewed Verona, they don't have a problem. They don't have a problem, and they're nonpartisan, you know?
well, I mean, just to bring up a point, because there will be people wondering, and I'm, you know, today's comments were not lost on me, and I'm very confused. When the equivalent of BA, the manager, made the comment that, well, everything's partisan. Whether you have partisan or nonpartisan, he said everything's partisan. And there's truth to that, because, you know, yes, we could recommend all we want to the local parties and, you know, leaders, that what we recommend, right? But at the end of the day, it's either going to get rooted out if this is the direction we actually go in, and not, you know, staying nonpartisan, which I know many of us haven't necessarily made up our minds strongly yet. So we just have to be aware that, is it really going to make a difference? If we make it nonpartisan, does it really become nonpartisan if at the end of the day, many people still believe everything's partisan? And you can look up the numbers of donations, and you go to those people who would naturally fall in line with you, with your party that you are not unaffiliated with. So I don't know, you know, does it really make that much of a difference? And that's comments that I've heard from the general public. So I'd like them to be brought out here to make sure that their voices are heard.
I think something that our chair and I heard throughout a lot of our phase one interviews was the important thing of getting the right people elected. And I think
Yes.
that was
Yeah.
emphasized today with Red Bank. And,
Yes.
you know, one of the structural things that I keep hearing is sort of the party label being an impediment to, you know, good people, otherwise, you know, people who would want to run getting turned away. Now I know, Joanna, we had that conversation today where there's the anecdote of he's an independent voter who really wanted to run, and they thought they were a great candidate, but in the particular town, only one party can get elected. She was okay with maybe affiliating with that, but her parents were of the other party, and so she just gave up on the idea because she didn't want to cause internal strife with her own family.
Right.
So, you know, it always comes back to me, at least, for how do we get the best people to step up and serve the community?
Right, we've heard many examples of people electing not to run at all because they didn't want to say. Today was interesting because it was her family. She didn't want to say anything because she didn't want to disappoint her family and cause strife. The other that you mentioned was not her family, it was more, you know, she didn't think she would win, so she didn't have the money to go fight. So there are enough stories, you know, that are compelling.
And it goes further because, you know, you're absolutely right in getting the right people to run and ultimately serve. That means getting people to run because they have a personal desire to and a desire to serve the community, as opposed to, you know, in our current form of government, getting tapped on the shoulder to say, hey, might you be interested in it? And I'm not saying that people who ultimately get elected through that, some of them might be great and not have realized they had the interest. But there is something to say for people who had the inherent desire to make a difference in their community and ran because of that, and not because somebody got in their ear to say, hey, we think you would be good on this issue, or we think you'd be good and maybe you should run and we'll support you, and then prop the person up and they probably don't even know what it takes, or they might not have the passion for it. So when this stuff gets tough, they will not fight. They will not do the extra research. They will not be passionate about it. That's what you really want people elected, whether you support them or not. You want somebody who's in it for the right reasons, to do well for the town, who's committed to make hard decisions, to do the research and take a stance, whether you like that stance or not. you don't want somebody who's like, I'm not sure what I'm doing, I don't even know why I'm here, and so I'm gonna listen to outside influences.
Well, let me just say this, as we noted, 43% of the township is unaffiliated. And we have, I happen to feel we have a lot of qualified people to be on our township committee that, to your point, Corey, just don't want to run, because of the partisan nature of what we have here. So I'm leaning towards 7-person township committee form of government.
We can't have a 7-person township.
You can't, no, you can only have council manager.
Yeah,
You have to choose.
Council
But then you have to lean into that.
Yeah.
But see, I think,
I whatever, I happen to feel we have a lot of qualified people here in
they
in
might
the
be,
town.
but I don't know, even before things got, tricky with partisanness. Many people, I've been here since 1999. People
I've been
have
here
told
since
me.
1981.
Yeah, but
and
I'm sure people have told you in the past as well, the fact that it's just hard to get people to run, So I don't know if it's fair to say it's only because of partisanship. It's just, sometimes it's just hard to get people to run. And what the party chair people would tell me in the past, years past, is it's just so hard, to get someone, to commit to that commitment as a pretty much a volunteer.
It is, but they're also looking for a certain person. If you're it's harder to get somebody to run if you're looking for a certain type of person.
Willing to sign a loyalty oath.
Well, I had Mary McNett call me and ask me to run because she's like, we just don't have anybody. And I'm like, but I'm of a different party, She's like, it doesn't matter. You're a good person. Like, I just think you should run.
Yeah, I also think that
back in the
That
day,
was really
it was
kind of awesome.
Yes.
I was impressed.
Same way. When I first started getting involved, with the Recreation Commission and this and that and everything, I've had the Dems, I've had the Republicans, I've had
Like,
the
people just
Independents.
asked all the time,
Yeah,
so.
Chris, why don't you run?
Right, there
and
was
what's
nobody
great though is
perfect.
that you.
And my wife said she'd divorce me.
And my mother said she'd kill me, so.
But
Right.
the other thing is if we get some of the toxicity out of the governance, you might get more people whose spouses and parents would allow them to run. So you open up some gates that are currently closed.
Mhm. True.
I do want to address Jay's question about the party chairs, and I know Joanna, you and I have talked about this at length.
Yes, how to involve, yeah, so yes. if you
I think
address that.
the forum that we're gonna have, we should definitely invite the 2 party chairs, I think that I think might be a more productive environment for them to espouse their viewpoints, I know these party committees, sometimes they have some like arcane rules where they can't talk about things that go on, or they might not, they're temporary as well, like the chairs might not be the chair if they say something in public, right? And so
Right.
there's this sort of, if they say, well, I'm going to do this if it goes nonpartisan, and then their
That
committee
was our
says,
concern.
that's a
about.
terrible idea, and now we're gonna get rid of you as chair because you said that publicly, so I think that's probably a
That's a
better
good
forum if
forum,
they
yeah,
do
so if
choose
we
to
can come
come.
that day, that'd be great.
So we'll have them, we'll reach out to them on March 22,
For March, yeah.
before March
Yeah.
22, yeah.
That's a great,
Okay,
great
that's-
time.
that's a great
Point to
idea.
them is like, look, they currently they play a pivotal role in our government.
No
And
question.
So
No
we wanna
question.
get as many of those pivotal cogs in our current form so that we can learn from every
Mhm.
perspective.
Absolutely,
Mhm. Yes.
yeah, I think that's great, that's the right forum,
Yeah.
as we talked about, because I know we were afraid to get people in trouble with their, people they
Right.
represent,
Right.
because they may not
Right.
be permanent.
And it would be a tell-all if one party doesn't come.
Like the hype version.
Hopefully they both do, I think people will come.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay,
It's on them if they can send it like a deputy chair or something.
Yeah, or even if it's like a smaller environment where they're more comfortable, not airing out what they might perceive to be dirty laundry in public. I think sometimes it's difficult if they're subject to these rules where they can't speak on behalf of the committee, they might not be in that position of power
Mhm.
after things change,
Right.
People sometimes might be hesitant to be more forthcoming in those environments.
Have we addressed everyone's questions?
Everyone okay?
Okay, great.
Good. May I have a motion to adjourn the meeting?
So
Second?
Third, 14th, second, I second.
All right,
gavel it.
Gavel.
all right.
We out.